What's up, everybody? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, and it's your favorite time of the week. It is time for UFC Best Bets, and we got James Krause, as always, veteran MMA fighter, veteran MMA coach, and Nick Kalikas from Circus Sports here in Vegas, breaking down the fights from a gambling aspect. Coming off of a week in which we hit some bets, lost some bets, but one of the bets we lost was okay because it was Nick Kalikas betting against the guy that James Krause was cornering last week, Derek.
You better stop it, Nick. You better stop it.
Over Charles Rosa. So I actually blame you, James, for not talking him out of the bet when he's betting against your guy. That was your opportunity to talk him out of it, and you just.
I gotta let him know next time.
Definitely, man. Because your coaching made a positive impact, no doubt about that. So I mean, hey, at least there was some good that came out of my loss. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
And obviously a shocking result in the main event. Derek Lewis knocks out Curtis Blades in the second round. I asked these guys last week, what's keeping you off of Curtis Blades? Because they both really liked Curtis Blades, and they said the power, the ability to turn your lights off with Derek Lewis. And so hopefully you weren't on that one. And we got another heavyweight fight to talk about this weekend, guys. It's Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Ciryl Gane in the main event of UFC Fight Night. This line surprised me a little bit, I'll be honest. Gane, he opened at minus 330, now down to minus 280, so it's gone in Jairzinho's way a little bit, but Gane is still a pretty big favorite, especially a guy who hasn't had many fights. He's only 7-0 in his entire MMA career. Coming back on Rozenstruik, you're at plus 230. So the odds of this fight going the distance, if you bet yes, it will go the full 5. You're getting plus 175. If you think it's going to end before that final bell, you got to pay minus 250. So James, we'll go ahead and start with you. Another heavyweight fight, like I said, two guys who have combined for a lot of finishes. How do you see this one going?
Well, it's kind of weird for me because I'm really big on Ciryl Gane, and I like him a lot. He's an athletic young kid, good striking, good grappling, good cardio. He seems to have everything it takes for it to be a championship caliber fighter. But when I see the line, I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, I don't understand. Even at 280, I still don't really understand it. I mean, Rozenstruik is extremely powerful. World-class kickboxing, has fought some of the best guys in the division, and I personally like Gane in the fight, but I just personally don't see where the value is coming from. I don't think the line is there at all. And for that reason, I'm staying completely away from this fight. Both those guys have finishing power, so I'm not going over under. I'm not going, I'm not picking. If I had to pick, I'd pick Gane to win, but there's no way I'm paying that price for it. I think it's I still think at 280, I still think it's overpriced.
How about you, Nick? You thinking about making a play on this one?
It's tough. I agree with what James said. I mean, at the price, it's a little difficult because I think it's a dog or pass situation. I don't think you could take a stab, obviously, at Gane at the price. You're laying too much chalk. What James said, that Rozenstruik has so much power. He's a great striker. I mean, historically, even before he got in the UFC, he's got that knockout power. He's delivered to the UFC often. So it's a dog or pass situation. So I think if you're looking at this fight, it's not smart to lay the chalk. We just saw it against Curtis Blades. When you have two powerful heavyweights, especially at this level, very highly skilled, especially on the feet. I mean, these guys are both strikers. But Gane does also have the back pocket in his wrestling, and I think the jiu-jitsu advantage as well. So that's where I'm a little tentative. If I knew that this was going to stay up on the feet the entire time it lasts, I don't think it's going to go. Somebody's probably going to get finished here. But the chance of Gane actually taking this to the floor, and then on the floor, I don't think he's just going to hold him down and try to just control the fight. He's going to look to finish. He's going to look for submission. He's going to look for some ground and pound. Rozenstruik is very difficult to hold down and keep down, though. Rozenstruik often gets up back to his feet. He's working on that takedown defense. So I think we will see this play out more often than not on the feet, but there is that back pocket that Gane has as far as grappling goes. So I think the line is a tad high, but again, this is another tentative spot for me because I think it's dog or pass, but I'm not sure if I want to waste my money on the dog here in this spot.
Nick, for you on the total for the fight to go a full 5 rounds, and when you're talking about heavyweight, I mean, if you could just take fighter A versus fighter B, but you know that they're heavyweights, I mean, what is that line? What do we think that the likelihood of a heavyweight fight going 5 rounds?
It's not very likely for sure. I mean, most of the heavyweight fights we see lined at 1.5 rounds, right? Because I mean, there's that sweet spot. They have so much power, especially in a 5-round fight. Then there's a chance that it doesn't go. But we oftentimes do see the pace of the heavyweight fights slow down a little bit. These guys respect each other's power, and it might trickle over 1.5 rounds. But that's why you're seeing a tough, difficult bet at 1.5 as well. because, you know, you're not just going to jump the gun and automatically assume that it's going to go over, because the knockout power can be there obviously early on in round one. But a lot of times, like I said, it does trickle over. So there might be value more times than not on the over 1.5 rounds. But yeah, I mean, typically speaking, they're not going to go 5 rounds.
Is the over under 1.5 or 2.5 on this one?
It should be 1.5. Let me double check here.
I think it's 2.5 on this one.
Let me check here.
But I was going to say that if you're looking to play just to play, I do like the over 1.5. I do, because I think if Gane's smart, he's going to go out and fit in early and you know, try to like we talked about, they slow down as the fight progresses. But I think it's at 2.5.
Well, it depends. I think different books will use different offerings, but I think the market across the down bet screen that I'm looking at is about 1.5, laying almost minus 200. So you could definitely make a case. So 2.5 would be maybe around minus 140, 130, something like that. So the books can use a 2.5 round when the line is so juiced up over 1.5 like it is now. So, but yeah, so you could take a bet at minus 1.5, but laying almost 2 to 1, I don't know. It's kind of a dicey spot.
Yeah, it's not worth it at 2 to 1.
William Hill will give you an option to pick sometimes which round you want to go over. So 1.5, 2.5, at obviously different odds. Let me play just Joe Schmo casual better square out there who's probably losing all of his money on the weekends, right? So let me play that guy and you guys can tell me what you think. So if
that was me last weekend.
What's that?
That was me last weekend.
Yeah. Well, it is me every week as well, and sometimes on the weekdays. But let's say you've had a bad day, you've had a rough week, you've lost some money, and you're looking at a way to recoup some of it. You want to save play, and you're looking at that total of will the fight go the distance? No is minus 250, and the way I'm looking at that is, you're right, Nick. Sometimes these fights, they really slow down. The pace crawls. These guys have poor cardio, so it's almost like they lose the power that it requires to knock somebody out. You've seen that in heavyweight fights, right? This one, you've got 2 guys who are not older. You've got 2 guys who I believe will have maintain that finishing power throughout. If I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like to me, 5 rounds. You give these guys, you put them in there, and they're not slowing down. They're not some of these older guys who are like 40s, you know, towards the twilight of their careers. I mean, Gane is 30 years old in his first main event. I think this fight's gonna end. You know, is it worth laying 250 in that spot to both of you?
Minus 250 that it doesn't hit the scorecards, probably a little bit of value there. Yeah. I mean, because I could see it being a little bit over 300 as far as that goes. So you might have a little bit of room to work with in that. So yeah, I probably think, but like you said, though, they are pretty tough. I know that Rozenstruik got, you know, blasted and KO'd by Ngannou, and Ngannou has that freakish power as well, right? But typically speaking, he's got a pretty durable chin. I mean, even in Overeem, if you look back at that fight, he was taking some shots from Overeem, and he was just kind of, you know, walking through them. So I don't think he's got a bad chin. I don't think Gane hasn't been really, I mean, tested as much as we've seen, obviously, as Rozenstruik in that regard so far. But I could see it trickling over 1.5, but ending before 5. Yeah.
I think I would rather go over 1.5 than the 5. I don't know, man. It's so, because listen, if you watch the fight, I bet we would have the same conversation if it was Rozenstruik Overeem, you know, and that fight all but went the distance, you know, what, 10 seconds or whatever it was left, you know, not even. So it's like when I look at those guys are both finishers and they went the distance. So it's just this one. There's so many, whenever you have the guys like these 2 that have the finishing power, but they're both durable. They're both finishers. They're both durable. They're both hard to hold down. It's just like there's so many X factors. I'm staying so far away from this fight. It's not even, especially after last weekend. I went blades and the over, and I got murdered. So yeah, I was like, was it 58 seconds from hitting the over? So I'm staying away from this one.
Well, let me ask Nick one more question about the main event then, since James is wants to leave. Wants to leave the room to talk about this fight.
I got PTSD from last week.
What do you think, Nick, about? I always kind of look at this in terms of like, if one fight hadn't happened in this guy's career, how different would the line be? And in Jairzinho's case, it'd be the Francis fight, right? I mean, this guy was on absolute fire, 4 finishes in 2019. He's got this big fight against Ngannou. He calls Ngannou out, which no one does, and then he gets finished in 20 seconds. Okay, and then he comes back and then he gets a rebound win against Junior Dos Santos. So he's put that experience kind of behind him. You know, I mean, who knows if it's still playing with him a little bit of 20-second knockout loss, but at least it's not his first fight back. And I'm just thinking to myself, if that fight against Francis hadn't happened, what does this line look like if Jairzinho is still running high like he was in 2019? He's still the same guy.
Excellent point. This line would be chopped in half, to be honest with you. I think we would
even
probably Yeah, like, or minus 130, minus 140 for Gane instead of minus 300. I mean, Rozenstruik would definitely get a lot more respect out there. And you're right, that has impacted the line quite a bit because we've seen Rozenstruik have his bad moment. We haven't seen Gane have that bad moment yet, right? So it might happen this weekend, though, so we could see that. But I absolutely agree with you. I think this line would be a lot more competitive. It'd be minus 130, minus 140 for Gane at this point because he still is the more well-rounded overall fighter. And I think he would get a little bit more respect, but not like this. So absolutely right. Good point.
All right, let's get you guys' bets. James, why don't you lead the way?
And
bring us back
go.
From last weekend, bro.
Okay. I was gonna let Nick go this time first, but okay. From a value perspective, man, I typically try to stay away from my own guys. But I really like Kevin Kroom in this fight. I think he's extremely undervalued. And I would even go, if you wanted to throw a little bit of money on the under as well. I just feel like Kevin has been because of his record, he's undervalued and rightfully so. If you look at some of the guys he's fought, but what they don't know is the work that he's put in behind the scenes. He's coming off of a dominating victory over Roosevelt Roberts, dropped him with a left hook and then guillotined him in like 30 seconds. Roosevelt's a 55er. Kevin took that fight on zero notice. Kevin's grappling is amazing. I think there's value in getting Kevin Kroom. If you guys are looking for the dog pick, I think that's the way to go. I really do.
There you go. Straight from his coach's mouth, James Krause saying to bet on his guy this week. We should have been betting on his guy last week.
I don't do that. I don't
listening
like to
to
do
Nick.
that. I don't like to do that. I really don't. I don't like to even mention my guys. But as I step back, I thought this is where the value is in my opinion. And if you're looking for a little favorite, I do like Jimmy Rivera over Pedro Munoz.
Okay, well, so a little bit of a lean there on Jimmy, which is interesting because Nick, I wanted to talk to you about that fight. You and I were actually talking about it before James hopped on. What do you think about that fight and your best bets?
I'm going to go the opposite way actually in that fight, just because I think the plus money, and it's all about value and what lines you get right in different prices. And I think long term, if you continue to take value spots and good pricing, then you're going to win. Maybe not immediately, meaning that maybe this fight, could be a loss. Rivera could go out there and win the decision. But I think at the price, it should be closer to a pick 'em. So you should be laying chalk either way, minus 110. And I'm going to get plus 125, plus 130 on Munoz. So that's why I'm leaning his way. The first time they fought was a while back. I understand that both of them have improved and gotten more UFC experience. But it's a very competitive fight. I like Munoz. He pushes forward. I think he is the better finisher in this spot as well. So if he hits the scorecards, I think we're going to see a split decision type of fight, which might not go my way. I'm a little bit worried about the judging, but at the same time, I do think that if it doesn't hit the scorecards, if there's going to be a finish in this fight, Munoz could knock him out. Munoz could possibly rock him and hop on a submission as well. So he's got a little bit more ways to win this fight, and you're getting plus money. I don't know. I just think it adds up very well, and I have to go with a value plus 125 where I should be maybe laying a little bit of chalk. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If it hits the scorecards, it's funny that you say that it could go to a split decision because it already did in 2015. These guys fought, and Jimmy Rivera won a split decision in a very good fight. So,
Nick, is that your best bet?
Yeah, I mean, this card, I think there's going to be a lot of fool's gold, meaning that there's a lot of tempting underdogs, but you have to pick your spots. And I think there's going to be a lot of these favorites to come through. So yeah, that is, I mean, I'm tempted to put something on Rozenstruik, but we just discussed it. I think that I'm going to probably be disciplined and stay away from it. And the rest of the card, there's a couple of tempting spots. Because I can understand your Kroom bet. That for me, that's a tempting. I was on the fence, almost leaning towards Kroom myself because I think he's very underrated. So I'd lean that way. I'm just not going to touch it. So for me on this card, Munoz is probably my favorite play because I think that's where you see the most value. The rest of the card, I think, is probably lined about right now. So unless we have some drastic movement and something opens up, I'm probably going to take it easy on this card.
There you go. Well, value play on Pedro Munoz, and then a best bet from James on his guy.
Let's go.
Kroom, getting it done over Alex Caceres. Appreciate the time, boys. Enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed it as well. Hope you win some money, and we'll be back here next week to talk about the big UFC pay-per-view, Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. Really looking forward to that one. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.